Have you ever wondered why the US interior is vastly emptier than Canada's? It's a question that might have crossed your mind while you were studying a map or planning a road trip. The differences in population density between the two countries, particularly in their interiors, are quite striking. As we venture into today's topic, we'll be exploring a puzzle that has intrigued geographers, historians, and trivia enthusiasts alike. We'll be delving into the reasons behind the population distribution in the United States and Canada, and why the US interior appears so much emptier. Now, if you're imagining vast swaths of untouched wilderness when you think of the US interior, you wouldn't be wrong. But it's not about the lack of cities or infrastructure, it's about the people, or rather the lack thereof. When compared to Canada, a country known for its expansive wilderness, the US interior seems even more sparse. On the other hand, when we look at Canada, we see a different story. Despite its reputation for being a country of wide open spaces and breathtaking landscapes, the majority of Canada's population is concentrated along its southern border, near its American neighbor. The interior of Canada, while vast and beautiful, is less densely populated than its border regions. So, what's going on here? How did these two neighboring countries, sharing a continent and a lengthy border, end up with such different population distributions? What historical, geographical, and socio-political factors have influenced this intriguing pattern? Throughout this video, we'll be delving into the complex tapestry of events and decisions that have shaped the population patterns of these two countries. We'll explore the historical context, the role of urbanization, and the ways in which these countries' unique histories have influenced their present-day population distributions. Are you ready to dive into this great population puzzle? Stay tuned as we delve into the historical context behind this fascinating phenomenon. It's going to be an enlightening journey as we unpack the reasons behind the population distribution in the US and Canada. So sit back, relax, and prepare to have your mind expanded. The past holds the key to our question. Let's turn the pages of history back to the 1800s. In the 19th century, a pivotal event occurred in the United States, known as the Great Migration. This was a period of significant westward movement, where thousands of people, fueled by the promise of free land, better living conditions, and the prospect of wealth, packed up their belongings and headed west. Let's consider the Homestead Act of 1862, a landmark law that played a significant role in this movement. This act offered up to 160 acres of public land, practically for free, to any US citizen. The only catch? They had to cultivate the land and build a dwelling on it. This law was like a beacon, attracting people from the crowded eastern cities and even from across the ocean, all eager to stake their claim on the American dream. The Homestead Act prompted a westward shift in the population distribution. People began to spread out, filling up the vast expanses of the American interior. Towns sprung up along the way, dotting the landscape like stars in the night sky. And with the towns came the railways, opening up new routes for migration and trade. But this westward migration wasn't without its challenges. The pioneers faced harsh weather, disease, and sometimes hostility from the Native American tribes, whose lands they were encroaching upon. But despite these hardships, they persevered, carving out a life in the wilderness, and shaping the country as we know it today. By the end of the 19th century, the Great Migration had fundamentally changed the face of America. The population had spread out, with more people living in the interior and the West than ever before. This migration pattern has left a lasting imprint on the United States, influencing the population density that we observe today. The Great Migration had a profound effect on the population distribution in the US, but what about Canada? Let's delve into that next. Now let's take a detour north and explore the historical factors that shaped Canada's population distribution. Delving into Canada's history, we notice a unique pattern of development. Canada's story begins with the indigenous peoples who first inhabited this vast land. However, the narrative took a dramatic turn with the arrival of European explorers, drawn by the allure of a rich fur trade. Beaver pelts were in high demand in Europe, and the fur trade quickly became the backbone of Canada's economy. In the 17th century, the Hudson's Bay Company was established, marking a significant chapter in Canada's history. This British trading company was granted a charter by King Charles II, giving them control over the vast region named Rupert's Land. This region, a massive swath of Canada's interior, was rich in fur-bearing animals, and the Hudson's Bay Company set up trading posts throughout. Yet, even with these posts, the harsh climate and difficult terrain deterred permanent settlement in these areas. Instead, populations began to cluster around coastal regions, where conditions were more favorable. The Atlantic coast, with its rich fishing grounds, and the Pacific coast, with its milder climate and opportunities for trade with Asia, attracted settlers. The interiors, while rich in resources, remained sparsely populated due to its challenging environment. As the fur trade era waned, Canada's economy diversified. Yet the population distribution pattern established during the fur trade era persisted. People continued to settle along the coasts and the southern border, close to the United States, where the climate was milder. The interiors, despite their resource wealth, remained less populated. It's fascinating to see how historical events like the fur trade and the establishment of the Hudson's Bay Company shaped Canada's population distribution. These factors steered people towards the coasts and away from the interiors, creating a pattern that still persists to this day. With a unique history deeply rooted in trade, Canada's population distribution took a different turn. Now let's examine a more recent factor at play: urbanization. Fast forward to the present day, and we find another major player in this population puzzle: urbanization. Now, what exactly is urbanization? Simply put, it's the process by which people move from rural areas to cities. This shift has played a crucial role in the distribution of population in both the United States and Canada. Imagine for a moment the lure of cities. They are vibrant with opportunities for work, education, culture, and entertainment. It's no surprise then that people are drawn to them. In the United States, this trend has given rise to what we call mega regions. These are expansive, densely populated areas that often include several cities and their surrounding suburbs. Take the Northeast megalopolis, for example. It stretches from Washington, D.C. to Boston, encompassing major cities like New York and Philadelphia. This single region is home to more than 50 million people. That's more than the entire population of Canada. Speaking of our northern neighbor, Canada's population is also significantly concentrated in its urban centers. Around 80% of Canadians live in cities, with the majority clustered in just a handful of metropolitan areas. Toronto, Montreal, and Vancouver are prime examples, each buzzing with activity and brimming with people. What's interesting is that this urbanization trend isn't just about big cities getting bigger. It's also about smaller towns and rural areas getting smaller. As people move to cities, these less populated areas are often left with dwindling populations. This, in turn, can lead to a host of challenges, including economic decline and a lack of essential services. So we see that urbanization has been a significant factor in shaping the population distribution in both the US and Canada. It has led to the rise of densely populated urban regions, while simultaneously contributing to the decline of smaller towns and rural areas. Urbanization has undoubtedly had a major impact, but what does this mean for the future? Let's imagine the possibilities. As we gaze into the crystal ball of the future, what could this mean for both nations? When we consider the possible future implications of this population distribution trend, the effects are far-reaching, touching upon economic, social, and environmental spheres. From an economic perspective, the vast emptiness of the U.S. interior could present untapped opportunities. It could be a blank canvas for innovative industries or sustainable agriculture, a chance to write new chapters in the story of American entrepreneurship. Yet it also poses challenges: the costs of infrastructure development, the need for services and amenities, the question of how to attract people to these areas. On the Canadian side, the concentration of population along the southern border presents its own economic conundrum. While dense population centers can foster innovation and economic growth, they also strain resources and infrastructure. Balancing growth with sustainability will be a key issue for Canada in the coming years. Socially, the population trends in both nations could redefine the idea of community. In the US, settling the interior might lead to the creation of new communities, each with its own unique character and identity. In Canada, the continued growth of urban areas might lead to an even greater diversity of cultures and ideas, enriching the social fabric of the nation. Environmentally, these trends present significant challenges. How can the U.S. develop its interior without compromising the natural beauty and ecological balance of these regions? How can Canada manage its urban growth in a way that respects the environment and preserves the nation's vast wilderness areas? While the future is uncertain, understanding our past and present can help us navigate what's to come. The population trends we've discussed today are not just abstract numbers. They're a reflection of our history, our society, and our relationship with the land. Keep wondering, keep exploring, and remember, geography shapes us as much as we shape it.
Subscribe for more videos like this. Turn on notification and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.